So the first movements and asanas we'll go through, they're just real basic, easy to get you gently going in towards the series. So first of all, we'll do mountain pose or Tadasana. So we'll stand with our ankles and toes together and draw up the energy from the floor. Feel those toes spread wide so you feel yourself really onto the floor, onto the ground beneath you. And then put life into the back of your knees, so you're just pushing those knees back a little bit gently. Feel the glutes come into action, so they're just engaged. And then drawing up your pelvic floor, pulling in that tummy button, and then lifting through the diaphragm, so you're just pushing that back and up a little bit. And so then you're just lifting each vertebra up above, off the disc below it. So you're rising up through, and you'll feel your head being drawn up. So the crown of your head being drawn up. Your gaze is soft, and you'll feel your chin being drawn back a little bit, so you're actually stretching the back of your neck. And then make sure your shoulders are dropped down and back, and that's where they can rest in the back of the socket. So once you're all engaged within this posture, this is a real good beginning for you to be able to use wherever you are, whether you're in supermarket, whether you're out on the yard, you're just thinking about what you need to do next. Bring yourself into this pose and breathe. So using full breath, full inhalation and full exhalation. So you're using that tummy, you're using the core to engage, and you've pulled the core in to really cushion your spine. And just standing in that pose for 4 or 5 breaths will give you a greater clarity of thought and just ground you. So that's your mountain pose. And the next movement I like to do is sort of a shoulder mobilizer. So if you stand with your feet hip width apart, don't go too wide. People often go too wide. And so just with your shoulders, you're going to bring your shoulders back, then draw them up and they stay back. Push them forward, they stay up. Push them down and they stay forward. And so it's like you're drawing a big square. So they push back, push up, stay back, push forward, push down. And all the while you've got your pelvic floor engaged, that tummy button pulled in, diaphragm lifted and pushed back. You're really mobilising through those shoulders. And this is so important for riders. We really need that ability to mobilise through the shoulders. And then you just reverse that. So you come up and they're forward, push back, drop down, bring them forward, bring them up, push back and drop down. And be sure to be breathing through all of these. I've got to keep talking, unfortunately, but you guys can keep breathing. And then once you've done your round of maybe 4 going backwards and then 4 going the other way, then just release those shoulders off, give yourself a little bit of extra wiggle. So that's your shoulders mobilised, and then keeping your pelvic floor engaged, keeping that core drawn in. We just loosen off our wrists, because as riders we use a lot our hands, and we want to keep those wrists lovely and supple. So bring those hands into prayer position. Drop the shoulders down and back. Keep the pelvic floor engaged, glutes engaged. And then we're going to bring those fingertips forwards. And then we're going to drop them down. A few breaths here. Bring them forwards again. Bring them up. And then bring them towards your chest. So you can see everything working quite hard. Keep those shoulders dropped down and back. We don't need the shoulders to get engaged. Bring them up again, forwards and down. Just really working your forearm, forwards, up, and then release those off, give a little shake. And then we can do the same thing with our backs of the hands pushed together. So we've got them down here, keep those shoulders down and back. We don't want the shoulders rising up, keep the pelvic floor engaged. Bring the fingertips towards your chest. Drop them down again. Bring them forward. Try and bring them as high as you can. And then bring them down again. Forward. And then we're just going to roll around. Keeping those edges of the hands together. So we're really getting everything moving in those wrists. And then we can roll around again. Keep those shoulders supple, dropping away from the ears. And there we go, we've released off the wrists. Okay, next we can mobilise the hips and the shoulders a little bit more. So feet together, and we go into swimming dragon. So hands to your prayer position again, and we're just going to make a really big figure of 8. So we draw up, bending the knees, keeping everything soft, and then bringing those fingertips down to the floor, coming up, and that's your first figure of 8. So we'll do one more. Ideally we do these in 3s, and coming down, and the bigger you make that 8, the more luck you're going to have. So we come up to the right this time. So a really big figure of 8, so it's working through your hips, working through that lower back. And if you find it hard to get to the floor, that's fine. You know, you don't have to, if you really struggle through your back, even if you come this low and you're just moving slowly with awareness, that's good enough to get things mobilised. So that's the first swimming dragon, and then we'll jump the feet apart. If you can't jump your feet apart, then just slowly place your feet apart. And here you want to make sure your toes are pointing outwards a little bit, so your knees can travel over those toes. So that's keeping yourself in alignment. So again, we just make the same figure of 8, but we've got everything spread apart. This time we want the heels of the hand to go down towards the ground. So we're really shifting the weight from one leg to the other, keeping that movement smooth. Keep the pelvic floor engaged. And the slower we go, the more control we've got. And you can combine it with your breath work. So once you've got familiar with the movement, you want to inhale on the upward part and exhale on the down part. So there we go, now we're all nice and loose and supple through the hips. So that's a few starter exercises for you to practice as much as you can. Even if you can only manage 5 minutes, 10 minutes, just a short session just to get you into the flow of doing those movements. Ideally, if you can do it after a warm bath or a warm shower, that'll help you get into the movements a lot easier. And then when you come back for the series, if you have any problems with the movements or the asanas, we can go over them and I can give you more detail to make those easier for you.